So before we start getting deep into the percussion stuff, let's just quickly add some ambience to kind of give us a little bit of vibe going on while we're working on the percussion stuff. We're going to grab a copy of Anna 2. So we're just going to grab a preset really quick. I like this ambient pad preset here. And I'm just going to make a MIDI clip that follows this entire clip all the way to the end. Let's have it go to the outro because we're going to have that last hit. And I think the key that we're going to be working in today is going to be B minor. So we'll change our scale to B minor. We can just flip on scale and let's grab this B. Ooh. Make sure that starts on the 1, and then we'll just add an F sharp on top. And we're going to hit the legato button, and now we have this. And let's dial in that preset just a little bit. We can turn the noise down a little bit. Tweak that noise a little bit. Turn the FM down a little bit. So I'm liking that. It has a very strong harmonic going on in there. So we're just going to grab EQ 8 and we're going to tighten that up a little bit. So we don't want this to really dominate the track. We just kind of want to create a little bit of ambience. So you can see that fundamental right there. Let's grab this band, tighten that up as well. Roll off the highs a little bit, and we'll turn that sucker down. And I like that for our intro. So right off the gate, we want to add a little loop here. Let's just start with this little rack. So I've got this rack with a couple of Sonic Academy samples in it, and we're going to create this little shuffle sound. So if you just have everything at the same velocity, you're going to get this kind of machine gun thing, which is not very pleasant. Right? No bueno. But if we spice this up a little bit with velocity, getting closer there. And then let's add another accent to that. Yeah. Nice soft. Just to accent these hits. Yeah, and there's quite a bit of low end in these samples, so we're going to grab an EQ real quick and just kind of clean up those lows a little bit. I like that. That feels good. That kind of adds some energy, so we could almost start it with just some ambience. We're going to add some sort of effect to hit those pops. Bop, 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 bop. So it would be like a bop, 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 ba-da-da-da. We're going to take this loop and we're just going to highlight everything. You can hit Control A and highlight everything. We're just going to humanize a little bit. So maybe take that to probably around 12%. And that just gives it like a little bit more of a human feel. It's a little more interesting when it's not perfectly on grid. Now, I think what would be really cool is if we add a breakbeat to this. So I'm going to grab this breakbeat sample really quick. And you can find this sample in Ultimate Drums by Sonic Academy. And let's take a listen to this really quick. It's kind of a break. It's got no kick, which is great. We're still going to chop it up. I kind of want to remove these snares, right? Everything else is pretty cool. Just gonna highlight that, and you can hit Control D. Boom, it will duplicate that over. Maybe we'll duplicate that as well. Yeah, that's cool. So I like that. We're gonna hit Command E, and we're gonna hit Control Alt F, and that's gonna fade those ends together, so we don't get any clicks. And then I'll just hit Control or Command J. And then we'll go back and reactivate that loop. And now we've got our nice little hi-hat loop. I also like adding things that are real sounds into cinematic music to give it sort of an interesting flavor. So I made this clock loop out of a recording of a clock that I had, one of those old alarm clocks. Now what we can do is we're just going to loop that. It's already warped from Ableton, which is beautiful. Check it out. Oh, I love it. I think we could keep that clock going, actually. Let's just keep it running throughout. Yeah, that creates a cool little sense of anticipation. Now we're going to add some clicks. So I've got a couple of little clicky samples, and they're both just in regular samplers. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go along and kind of play along with this. Yeah, I can't really play it that fast, so let's just take this. And let's stutter it out at the end. Cool. So these are both little like tech house sounds. We can blend those a little bit differently. Maybe change the pitch. We're going to go over, and we're actually going to make these one-shot samples go up quite a bit. I'm just trying to find a tone that sort of feels like it works with the sort of key we have going on right now. So, transpose that one, and then we've got this one here, which I think this just adds like a cool little looseness to it. You can see the sample doesn't actually start right at 0, and then it's got this extra hit. Now that happens really fast, so it kind of sounds like one sound, but it adds a bit of a flam to the sound. So if I play these together, now if I tighten this up so that it actually hits directly on the 1, versus just gives it like a looser sound. I like that. And then I'm just going to add a bunch more of these little clicks. These are all kind of hitting right on these different cuts. Maybe not every cut. You can sort of just duplicate this throughout. I like a little stop here. So right here on this cut, we're going to let it breathe before we get into this shot. And then we're actually going to be hitting this shot late, because as you can see, it cuts to that, a little bit before the actual downbeat, but there's a punch on it, boom, and that's when it sort of slows down to slow motion. It's like fast as speed ramp, boom. So we definitely want to hit that with some sort of a big percussion thing. And what I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to draw these out. We'll get into more of the fine arrangements of everything later on. But for now, we just want to have sort of a basic loop that we're working with, and then we can start to arrange it from there. So now let's add some kicks. And for that, of course, we want to use kick. I'm going to grab kick 3 really quick. This is such a fantastic plugin. Now, I'm going to start this basically from scratch. So we're going to run into our presets here, and we're going to go to acoustic on the sub, and I like acoustic 2. And then let's add some clicks. So we're going to go into our click samples, and of course go to clicks, and let's take click 2 for starters. And we are just going to kind of ramp that down a little bit. And then let's add some more. So we're going to go to clicks and back to acoustic, and let's grab acoustic 3. Tighten up the tail on this a little bit. And then we're going to add more layers. What we're trying to do is come up with a really big cinematic stomp. And the thing with cinematic music is layers are everything. So let's add another live kick here. So let's go to live 22. Yeah, and then maybe some noise just to kind of top things off. So we will go to noise, and let's pick just the first noise one. And we're going to bring that length down. And there we go. That's sort of the foundation of what we're going to be doing with our kick. So we're going to call this kick 1. And let's just go ahead and group that for now, because we're going to be doing a lot with this kick sample. So I think it'd be fun if we added a little bit of a stomp to this. So let's go ahead and add another kick track, and we're just gonna remove everything. We're gonna add a click, and let's go to hard. So we're gonna shorten that up a lot. Let's add another click. Also from hard, let's go with 8. And see, this one's got some looseness to it. That's what we're looking for. Kind of give it like a little bit of a reverb tail. Swap over to our EQ here. Let's cut that fundamental. We're also just gonna cut the lows in general. Let's shape it a little bit with our mids. Great, now we can add some drive. So that is lovely, but I want to add one more layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab this guy. We're going to grab one more copy of kick 3, and we just want to add sort of a sub to this. So we're going to take that default, and we're going to get rid of the click, pitch it down, just mix that a little bit. Just tweaking it. Great, and then what we can do is we can actually start putting in a kick pattern. And what I like to do when I'm working with multiple clips like this, or you can highlight the 3 tracks and you can right click them and you can select link tracks. So that keeps them all together, which for our purposes on this, that's what we're going to be doing. We could also do this in one track by using a drum rack, but I like to have the flexibility to come in here and adjust the mixer. To me, it's just a little bit faster to do it this way. So let's try... Yeah, see, we're going to hit those perfectly. Notice that we've got these little zoom cuts. Boom, boom, boom. have one right here in this drop. We're gonna select those and we're gonna hit Control J, and that's gonna make them into a single clip. It's a little bit easier to manage them that way. Then let's start kind of throwing these throughout. We're gonna be changing these a little bit, but let's take a look at what it feels like now. So this section here, let's break the monotony of that kick for now. I'm just going to get some of these out of the way. And remember, we highlighted this before, right here around 17. Boom, boom, boom. See, we're hitting those cuts now. All right, so this is actually a triplet here, so we're going to select this clip right up until the beginning of where we want that next kick to start, and then we're going to hit Control D twice. That feels a little bit late. Let's back it up. And to me, that feels very, very straight and rigid. So we're actually going to slide this back. I'm going to break the grid by holding the Alt key when I grab this. Now I can slide it around regardless of the grid without it snapping. Little late. Just give it like a little bit of feel. And now we can go back to what we had there before. But I think we're going to change it a little bit, because I want this part to be really like a big soaring sort of melody, right? So grab that and maybe do like boom. Let's start with that. It's a little bit looser, more open. So other than right on the downbeat, we're pretty free here as far as what we can do percussion-wise. I really like the way this is feeling. So we've got another build-up happening right here. I think we're gonna need to zoom in for this. Yeah, similar vibe. I like that boom, boom, boom. Yeah, and then we can go back to a pattern here. Let's just copy this and duplicate it for now and see if that sort of lines up with what we're looking for. Good, I like this here. But let's change it so that we're not just duplicating everything, right? So let's make these straight quarter notes. We'll clean that up. See how that feels. And then, since we're getting a little bit more fast paced, let's go back to where we were at the start with that kick pattern. Oh, and look at that. Boom, boom, boom. Matches the cuts perfectly. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. And sometimes you have to hunt around for these cuts. As you can see, that frame is right there. And sometimes Ableton doesn't quite follow the timeline exactly when you're working with video as far as what frame is on the screen versus where your playhead is at. So you kind of have to bounce back and forth a little bit to find the cuts. And then this part here, we've got these really fast cuts. So maybe almost, and then that happens again. Yes, now this is one of those areas where I would love to talk with Evan and say, hey, can we just dial in this one cut here. Because if you look at this, we've got that shot, and then we've got that shot, right? So we've got this canopy opening here, and then we've got this like foot cam where you can see the wingsuit and everything, which is pretty cool. But that's actually happening a little bit in advance. So if we play it back, now what we could do is we could scoot this over so that we're hitting those exactly when they happen. We can do that, but to me it doesn't feel as good. So this is where I would say, hey, can you adjust that one frame a little bit? And then usually you can get a better end result if you have a little bit of back and forth between music and picture. Also, hitting stuff a little bit ahead of the frame works really well too, right? If we watch that, it happens and then we're hitting it after. That can give a sense of you see it and then you hear it. So now we have our kick pattern done for the whole song. What's next is we've got to add some sort of a snare, right? So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do as far as the snare. We're going to use kick 3 again for the snare, and we are actually going to start this one from preset. We're going to take snare 8, and we're just going to kind of massage this into what we need it to be. So let's just get a simple pattern going on with the snare. So I'm going to insert a new MIDI track. And we're just going to start playing around with some of these macros. So we're going to start with the length. Let's see what happens if we add some harmonics. I love that the EQ is built in so quickly like this. All right, and let's add a little bit of reverb, okay? So we're going to just grab Ableton's Reverb, and we will start with just backing off on that. Just kind of adjusting some stuff. Reverbs are really fun to play around with. We're just going to kind of keep tweaking this until it feels really good. I like to change the rate to slow. And I'm just going to literally grab that, duplicate it down. Beautiful. And then we will just keep that pretty much the same. We'll grab this guy, see how that feels there. So another thing we're going to do is we're going to gate this. So we're just going to go ahead, grab Ableton's gate. So the way I like to control gates on snares to get that gated vibe is we're going to go ahead and play with the hold. You can bring that way out. We just set the threshold to where it's going to consistently trigger, and we'll play with the hold, and that's how we get the actual length of our snare. And the attack as fast as we can get. Now, if we bring up that floor a little bit, now we can add the reverb effect back in, but we get that big sort of 80s gated feel. It's almost like having two reverbs in one when you use a gate like this. All right, let's see where we're at now. All right, we're gonna name that snare. We're gonna duplicate that, and we're just gonna delete everything off of here and add a fresh new kick. So for this one, I want something a little bit harsher for like the top end of the snare. Something short, like a drum and bass snare would be good. We're gonna start with maybe drum and bass, snare 3. So we've extended the noise. Let's play with that a little bit as well. So we've got this rattle here. I want that to be a lot shorter. Great. Now we're going to add a couple of reverbs. We're going to do this gated trick again. We're going to start with a hybrid reverb. And we're going to go into made for drums and big snare. We're just going to take the blend all the way over to the convolution side. And we're going to gate that. So I'm actually going to grab the gate from our previous snare track, and I'm just going to grab it and hit Control, and then I can drag it on here, and now I've duplicated it. And we'll just adjust that a little bit to taste. And we're going to slam that with a compressor as well. So I'm just going to grab a compressor here, take the ratio way up, around 5. So we want a slow attack, fast release. And then let's add another reverb. Just going to dial the dry wet back right off the bat and change that density we talked about to high. And add some pre-delay. Pre-delay is great for creating separation. We'll take that size way up. Turn off spin. And then just to put the icing on the cake, I'm going to add a saturator. We're just going to drive that. And turn it down to compensate for that. Now, I'm actually going to have this second snare do this trick. So we've got one snare coming, and then the other snare follows it. Then I'm going to go back and tweak this first snare a little bit more. Yeah, I just want the floor. I want there to be some tail. Speaking of reverb, we're going to grab another hybrid reverb, and we're going to add it to the kick. I know, it's crazy to think about adding reverb to a kick, but what we're going to do with it is we're just going to make it feel like it's in a place. So we go to Real Places and Foundry. Now if we just listen to this kick for a minute, we just shorten up that decay a lot. Kind of loosens it up a little bit. We're going to make sure bass is in mono. We're just going to have a short algorithmic reverb in there as well. Crank up the bass multiplier. Play with the shape. So you can hear how more cinematic that feels just with a little bit of reverb on it. And we'll probably add more reverb once we get into the mixing phase. It's not illegal to use reverb on kicks. It's just, you got to be careful about what you're doing with the sub frequencies. So let's grab these snares, make sure these are all labeled, and let's just go ahead and put them in their own little land for now. Snare, boom. I think it's a little too much going on. So here around 19 bars, I think it's a little too much going on percussion-wise. So I'm actually going to take this clock out of this section, okay? So we're just going to go ahead and cut that there. I'm going to add another marker. So we're going to take that clock out, and I think we should simplify our percussion here as well. So I'm going to highlight this section of the loop and hit Control-E, and that's going to split it. And I'm going to take that guy out. So I'm just going to hit that key there in the MIDI editor and hit 0. So now we got that rim and we're keeping the vibe, but it's a little bit more simple there. So I think it's pretty clean through there now. All right, so moving on to our next video, we are going to talk about the bass.